Good morning, and welcome back to Unspoken Exit, a series about suicide, suffering, and staying. In today's episode, we're going to look at suicide through the lens of culture and challenge the idea that suicide is always seen as negative, pathological, or morally wrong. So, what is culture? Culture isn't just what food we eat or what language we speak. It shapes how we understand pain, responsibility, autonomy, even the value of life and death. So when we ask, what does suicide mean? The answer depends really on where and when you're asking. In some cultures, suicide is tied to honor. In Japan, there's a ritual suicide. This was once considered a noble act to preserve dignity and restore family honor. It was not seen as selfish, impulsive, or wrong, but as an expression of responsibility, apology, moral clarity. And in ancient Rome, suicide was sometimes framed as an act of political protest or philosophical integrity. Among indigenous communities, suicide has sometimes been seen through a spiritual lens, particularly among elders who chose to end their life on their own terms rather than suffer long deterioration. None of this is to say suicide is good. It's to say suicide means different things to different people and different communities. Now, when we talk about religion, religious views on suicide vary incredibly widely. Some interpretations of Christianity, suicide is a moral sin. The logic goes, only God should take life, and to do otherwise is to play God. But this stance has softened over time, particularly in pastoral care and modern theology. In Islam, suicide is generally prohibited, but again, interpretations differ, especially in the context of martyrdom or protest. In Buddhism and Hinduism may see suicide as the karmic interruption of life's lessons, though there are examples in Buddhist tradition of monks who engage in in political protest, self-immolation as political protest. Religion can be both a protective factor and a source of shame when it comes to suicidal thoughts. And we can't forget, let's talk about colonization. In many colonized countries, suicide rates rose dramatically after cultural genocide, after displacement, after systemic violence. Think of indigenous populations in North America, Australia, and Latin America, many of which now experience suicide epidemics, especially among the youth. Colonization disrupts community cohesion. It disrupts identity, and it definitely disrupts the spiritual components, as suicide becomes one of the many ways that pain is expressed. Understanding this is crucial. Suicide isn't just about individuals. It's about community. It's about history. It's about structural violence. Now, queerness and culture. Now, I'm not going to use the term LGBTQIAA+, because that limits And if you know about me and some of the work that I do with identities, a lot of the work that I do is non-gay identified men who have sex with men. So instead of lumping everybody into the LGBTQIAA+, I'm going to refer to folks as same gender loving or same sex loving, because those are more inclusive. So for many same gender or same sex loving individuals, suicide is not just about personal struggle. It's about cultural clash between identity and belonging. If you grew up in a community that sees same gender loving or same sex loving as sinful, shameful, or invisible, you may internalize this message that you're unworthy of love. You're unworthy of existence. This is a cultural trauma, not just a psychological one. We must always remember that suicide prevention isn't about telling someone to hang in there. It's about changing the culture around them. And in recent history, we've seen suicide used as a form of protest. Self-immolation by Buddhist monks during the Vietnam War. Political prisoners of hunger strikes. Same-gender loving and same-sex loving activists die by suicide in response to political inaction or violence. These deaths are not about hopelessness. They are deliberate, painful, and pointed. They communicate something the world refuses to hear otherwise. We must make space for the complexity of those choices. Culture can either pathologize suicide or give it context. It can either shame or understand, prevent or provoke. The more culturally aware we are, the better we can support people across a variety of identities. Suicide is never just a personal issue. It's a cultural one. In the next episode, we'll return to the psychology and dive into what suicide looks like when it's grounded in depression. So thank you all for being here. And I look forward to seeing you again in our next episode. And I hope you all have a wonderful, amazing rest of this beautiful day. And I'll see you soon.